Good morning. Okay, so we are going to be working with acrylic. We're going to be working with acrylic, but instead of working with cover powders, I'm going to be working with clear and white. I'm going to be showing you guys some good fundamentals when it actually comes to building transparent tips, working with some of the really bright white powders to create some three-dimensional design inside. I think this is really going to help all of you guys out there that are really looking to improve your 3D work. Let's go ahead and get right to this. I'm going to go ahead and prep the surface of the nail, and what I want to be able to do again is always work on the basics when it actually comes to prep. So we're going to push back the cuticles. I'm going to use my electric file at 3,000 RPMs. And what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to prepare by removing the shine from the surface of the nail. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lightly tickle away the shine. Notice how I'm feathering the shine away from corner to corner. So I usually go around the corner, and then what I'll do is I'll use zone 1 of my barrel, work down zone 2, and then work back down. So I'm usually just working within this range right here, feathering everything away. It's very, very gentle. For those of you guys that are wondering how much pressure I'm using, I'm literally tickling the underside of my wrist, which is very tender. That's what we want to be able to do to remove shine from the surface. So from this point, what we're going to do is we're going to use swipe. You have the option of using a lint-free wipe, right, to kind of scrubbing the surface of the nail, or you could use a manicure brush and I could just kind of pump it and then clean the surface. Both works really, really well. Since I'm going to be doing a sculptured nail, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of clip off a little bit right here. So I'm just going to clip off the edge, just kind of file away right here. We'll use that as my guide. Okay. All right. So just round it off the tip, and then what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to use protein bond to create some really good adhesion all the way through. So we're going to go ahead and apply a coat from cuticle to free edge. You're going to do this on all 10 nails, and then we're going to come back and we're going to add one more. Okay. All right. So once we're done doing that, we're going to set ourselves up to build our free edge. So I'm going to go ahead and work with speed clear, and I got an 85 gram jar. What I want to be able to show you guys is, for those of you guys that have the liquid, what you can do is you can hold it up to your ferrule, which is the metal piece here. You're going to notice that it's going to pour inside your dish without ever spilling down the side of the bottle. So this is a way that you can dispense. You have to make sure that it's touching. You can't pour it and hopefully it lands on here. You have to touch it while you pour so that you can dispense it. The amount of liquid I'm actually using, as you can see, it's only enough, right, where it's just sitting where the tip of the brush is. That way I could rest it. Don't fill it up to the surface and create lake monomer. So the consistency that I need, especially when I'm working with the clears, I need to pick up something that's going to be easy to set. You'll notice since I'm working on a convex surface, I need to be able to do the same thing. I have to be able to bounce so that I have a nice bead on one side of my brush. I will remove the excess monomer from the back end. That way, when I go ahead and set this down to the surface, it's not going to like get away from me. You can see how it slowly levels. And then that way, when I pick it back up, right, you can see, when I pick it back up, it's not like getting away from me. This is what we want to be able to work with so that I could build the length of a free edge without the product running. If you don't have this consistency, and what I mean by this consistency, it's going to be very, very hard to be able to work. If you have liquid and you go straight into your jar, and then you pick it up and it's cold, and then when you go to set it down onto the surface, what's going to end up happening is the product is going to get away from you. Now, again, like having it run all over the place, this is going to be really frustrating for those of you guys that have never worked with acrylic. To prevent that from happening, use the drain method. Now, if you're working on the body of a nail, it's completely different because you need the consistency to be able to run. Right, you have to be able to get it to run from this point to this point, but not just straight down this way. It has to be able to run this way as well. So how do you prevent it from running all over the place? That is, and I'll explain to you when we get there, it's a case of picking it up and letting it sit onto the nail or on the brush for an extended period of time. I'm going to go ahead and get my form. I'm going to go ahead and place this underneath. I'm going to go ahead and pre-pinch it just like this. I have a handle, right? So here, once I open the back, I'm going to take the handle and I'm just going to get it on nice and tight, right? Boom. So that it's lined up in the center. And then what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to build something. So I'm going to take, again, I'm going to take the brush, I'm going to press it. I don't want a long tip, so I'm going to bounce, bounce, bounce. I have a very, very small pearl. I'm going to go ahead and drain that. And then what I want to be able to do is when I go ahead and set this down, it's just going to sit. There's a little piece of glitter right there. I'm going to go ahead and get out. So you can see it move, which is great. So again, if I just kind of juggle this up from the sides, keeping it within the sides, you see the sides, then I could use the body of my brush and I could walk it from the top of the bead all the way to the top. All right, so here, now you can see I'm getting it to the corner, but then at the same time I'm using the side of my brush, right, to just kind of work it back in so that I have this nice and even. I just need to make sure the form is dead straight. If you guys are working on these type of hands, you're gonna have to kind of hold on to the side while you're working. It's not like skin where everything sticks. But you can see the level of clarity that I have on the tip, right? The level of clarity that I have on the tip because of the consistency that I was able to pick it up with. And I'm not over patting it. I have a consistency where I'm able just to kind of lightly press. If you have a little bit on the end of the brush, one of the things you can do to make sure that the tip is actually secure to the front of the nail is by taking the tip of the brush, small amount, and what I'm going to do is just set this right here, and then as soon as I get it from side to side, I'm just going to lightly kind of brush it. Now what that's going to do is it's just going to secure, it's going to secure the tip basically to this front edge, and that's what you want to be able to do. But you're going to notice from the side profile how thin everything is, and that's what we want to be able to achieve. All right, so let me just go ahead and zoom out. We're going to go ahead and choose a different powder to be able to work with. I'm going to take Speed White, and I want to be able to show you guys how to lay in some flowers around the edge of the nail. The brush that I'm going to be working with is Imagination Art Brush. It's a very, very tight detailer. I'm going to lay some floral patterns to cover up this area right here and just kind of through the nail. And then that way when I cap it, it's going to be inside. So one of the things that you can do to help you with, what you can do to help you with this is by getting a separate dish. The reason why I want a separate dish is so that I'm able to, I need to create a monomer that's going to sit. For those of you guys that have worked on doing 3D and you notice that your flowers are running all over the place, it's because you don't have a monomer that's going to set it. So I'm going to put a little bit of monomer inside this dish right here, okay? And then what I'm going to do to get the monomer to set a little bit faster so that when I'm doing 3D, I'm just going to take a few drops of acetone, and I'm going to add it, right? Just this is on to the next. This is acetone polish remover. And what I'm doing is I'm adding it to this. So it helps it evaporate really fast. And when it evaporates really fast, it dries really fast. Greg, can I use that to do nails? No, this is only for doing 3D flowers. You're going to notice too, like if you build this out, there's a little bit of flexibility inside here, so if I wanted to be able to pinch it, I would be able to pinch that. But you're going to notice here when I'm working the right petals, I need to dip my brush, and then what I'll do is I'll spin it so that I can pick up a really, really nice bead. And you're going to notice that when I set this down to the surface, it slowly levels, right? That way, when I actually take my brush and I actually start to kind of press this out, right? You notice that it's not sticking. I'm able really to kind of create a really nice, smooth, flat surface that I want to be able to work. If I wanted to come from the inside and push this out, you're going to be able to see how I'm actually able to push out petals, right? By putting pressure from the inside of my brush as I start to work all the way out to the edge. Okay, so here, what we want to be able to do is, again, I'm going to take my brush, I'm just going to lightly tap, I'm just going to get a really nice bead, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of set it down right here. I'm just going to kind of lightly press it from the surface, and then I want to push it out this way. So I'll turn my brush around, and then what I want to be able to do is from the outside, I want to be able to kind of push this so that the majority of the acrylic is really pushing to the outside of the petal. And the acetone is allowing me to kind of push this so that I don't have to worry about it kind of sticking to the brush and running all over the place. Notice that a lot of pressure is on the inside of the petal, and a lot of thickness is on the outside. That way it gives it that really nice three-dimensional type of look, right? So just by pushing it out to the outside is going to be my first move. What I want to be able to do is I kind of want to work in a circle. So if I take my brush and I get another bead, okay, and then I set my bead kind of on the inside right here, then as it starts to settle, right, so notice how I take the very, very tip of this brush, and what I'm going to do is I'm keeping it on the inside, and this is going to allow me to kind of stretch it, right, all the way around. Right, and then once I kind of opened it up where I have all that negative space inside, then I'm going to be able to take the body of my brush and really start to work the petal out so that it looks like you can see how the 3D is on top, right? I have a lot of dimension in the petal as I work it out to the very, very edge. Just kind of cleaning up on the inside, making sure that I have all of that negative space. And again, you can see from the side profile how thin the bead is, right? All right, so I have all that open space on the outside. Okay, this is, again, I'm doing the least amount of beads as I possibly can. I'm going to take one more, right? And then what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to set this on the inside. And then as the bead starts to kind of open it up, like starts to slightly run, what I want to be able to do is use the tip of my brush on the inside of that petal, and then just really start to focus on getting it to the outside. You can see my hands are in this position, how I'm balanced. I'm holding everything like this as I'm working the petal around the outside, putting a lot of pressure on the outside of the floral pattern as I'm working around in a kind of a semicircle, right? But I have a lot of balance. And then what that does is it creates, and you can see how everything is kind of stacked. You can see how it's kind of stacked on top of it. And so 1, 2, 3, I'm layering up. And then what I want to be able to do is I'm going to dip my brush inside my jar. I'm going to spin my brush lightly. And then this is going to allow me to get a really, really small bead. So just barely touch. I'm just going to touch and get another really, really small bead. And then what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to set that inside, allowing this to settle. But you notice that it's not running into all the other petals. This is going to allow me to take the tip of my brush as it starts, and then I'm going to use the tip. But notice I'm quite vertical, right, as I get in and then touch just the very, very tip. But then you notice as I start to stab it out, right, it's not sticking to my brush. I don't want to, right now that looks like a donut. So that little bit of a ledge, I'm going to kind of push that ledge out, so that it looks like there is a little bit of dimension, as you can see. And so it flattens out one side. It actually looks like the flower is kind of pointing out in that direction. And you can see that it's just, all it takes is 4 small beads, right, to be able to cover that. Then the rest of the nail, right, I can take, again, a dot, a bead, let that settle. And then as it starts, you can see as it starts to self-level, it's not running all over the place. So this is going to give me the ability to come in and really start to kind of work that petal flat. Don't want to, I always have a tendency to put a lot of pressure, so I want to make sure that I'm very, very light with my hands. And you can see how my hands are connected. This is very good balance, so that as I start to work the bead or the petal out, I'm not pressing it way too flat. So I'm going to set one petal on this side. I'm going to try to keep it as flat as I can on that edge. So you can see it's raised, super, super flat on this side. And what this is going to do is it's going to allow me to get one more. All right, I'm going to set that down, and then you can guess. Again, I'm going to work it from the inside here, right? And then you can see how I'm starting to work all that thickness out, kind of breaking it into like a little bit of a horseshoe. And then as it starts to set, then I could use the tip of my brush just to kind of work it down, because it's so flat right here. As I push it down, you can start to see the ledge. And then I'm pushing it out, making it flat so that I have room to do my overlay. All right, so as I start to work the flower out into this U-shape pattern, then you can see that I really only need a couple of petals, right? So that it's kind of hiding in between, this one right here. So here, I just need a dot. So you'll notice that I take my, again, my liquid, and I'll submerge it and just kind of pull, I spin it. So I'll take it, I'll spin it, and then this will allow me to kind of just touch it so that I could get a really, really tight bead. Very, very small. And what I want to be able to do is I just want to set that in right there. And then if I wanted to add some dimension, I'll go back inside my liquid because it is quite dry, and I could just come from a vertical point and just kind of poke it. Boom, right? Lightly poke it, right? And then you'll notice that it starts to open up. So that is, again, just give it a couple seconds. Let me go back and just kind of hold the brush at a vertical point so that I'm actually able to lay that in. So I'm trying to cover up this area right inside here. If you wanted to add a leaf, you can get a small dot. You can go ahead and set a dot here. What we're going to do is just let it self-level. I'm adding a little bit more liquid to the surface. So what I'll do is I'll just lightly pull one side, all right, and then just lightly drag through the middle, and then you'll notice that it'll just kind of curve off to the side and add like this little bud, as you can see right here. Something very, very tiny. Doesn't have to be super intense. If you wanted to add some detail with some glitter, like this was some of the flake that we used last week in the design, I can go ahead and with this right now, so I'll just add a couple of dots here, a couple of flakes to the top, just to add some really cool dimension on the edges. And this is the mix that we had made last week. Again, I'm taking some real small amounts. Again, I don't want a lot, so I kind of use this brush just to kind of pick it up and just kind of lay it around, and I'm just kind of dancing around the edges of the design, right? Just kind of following up and around, right? Just like that. And then once we're done doing this, then what we can do is we can go ahead and cap it with clear. So you're going to notice from the side profile how very, very thin everything is. This is going to allow me to come in with some clear, and we're going to cap it. Okay, you can use XXX white to do the same exact thing. I do not recommend using the slick pour super white powders to do that. This is not the monomer I want. That's the one with the acetone mix. I need the one that has the regular monomer. And what we're going to end up doing is we're going to cap it. So I need to get a large enough bead, right? A large enough bead. And then what we're going to do is we're going to set that to the very, very back. I need self-leveling. So that way I could work around, everything kind of levels down. And then notice how everything runs over the pedal, and then right when it gets down to the front end, I could lightly really start dragging it. I'm allowing everything to level this way and around the perimeter of the nail, but that's how you're going to be able to get it so that it's glass-like, right? We don't want bubbles, and then as it starts to set, then I can start to kind of feather it through to kind of cap everything. Right, if there is a little bit of glitter that has gotten through, not a big deal. And then what I can do is take one more bead at the very, very tip. And then what I'll do is I'll set this back here, boom, just kind of allow it to level. And then use, again, the side of my brush to kind of guide it down and into place. I don't want to start attacking it right away. Allow it to level, allow it to cap. A lot of people, what they'll do is they'll take their clear and they'll just start attacking the surface, and then they're just like, why am I getting bubbles all the way through the surface? It's because you're not giving it a chance to kind of sit. So this is how I'm going to cap the whole entire surface. I'm not really concerned whether it's bowed in certain areas. I'm going to be able to straighten this out. This is going to be more of just a tapered square nail. But I really wanted to show you how you're going to be able to use the powders to create this, right? You can see how it encapsulates the design. If you're working, for those of you guys that are actually working on a tip, you don't have to build the clear free edge. You could glue it on and you could do the same exact thing, right? You're going to be able to glue your tip on. I wouldn't file the surface. Acrylic is going to stick to the plastic really well. If you have a clear tip and you file through, then there's a chance it's going to look scuffed. You're going to see all those scuff marks. So if you have the right tip, then you don't have to worry about doing that. We're going to let this dry, and then we're going to file it into shape. But because I was able to build the right support, you can see from the side profile, I'll show you guys. So here, you can see that everything is capped and ready to go. You can see the flower is completely embedded inside. I have enough thickness all the way through where I don't have to worry about filing into the nail. and that's the most important thing. If you're putting anything inside the nail, any type of embellishments, any type of glitter, you want to make sure that you have something that you're going to be able to work. I'm going to be able to take off the form right now because remember, the first thing that I built was that clear free edge, and this is still flexible enough. If I needed to take maybe my magic wand to the surface and just give it a slight pinch, I'm going to be able to bow those sides with work. One of the things I wanted to be able to explain to you before we get into actually filing this into shape is some of the work that you have to do to be able to master 3D. Let me just go ahead and take this off my finger. So again, it's about product control, and one of the things I do is with my students is, you have your brush and like that's fully loaded. If I spin it and then I touch the surface, right? Go ahead and spin this, and then I have to practice kind of grazing the surface so that I could get a bead that is like this big. So going from that, taking my brush, grazing the surface, and say, okay, I just need a little bit bigger than that, right? So I need to step up. You can see I'm going a little bit bigger, right? Bead wise, I'm going to take my brush, I'm going to spin it, and then again getting it to a point where the beads go from really, really small to really, really big. You can see how everything starts to self-level, but it's gradually getting bigger. It's like, can I get smaller than this? Take my brush, I'm going to spin it, and what that's going to do is like it's almost like you're just barely touching the surface, right? Barely touching the surface. Where if I have something like this, one of the things you can do as well is if you could set this down and you can kind of spread it out, then you can have it, right? So like you can see, like I could remove half of it, and then what I'm stuck with is just a really, really small bead or a small dot that once I press that into and I can kind of work it around, right? You can see how having this type of product control all the way up to taking your brush, pressing it, and then touching it, right? It's going to give you something that's quite large. But you notice that because of the acetone, it doesn't just melt like crazy, it stays raised. You see that, how it stays raised on the nail? That's huge, because once you take the liquid out of the brush and then you start to attack it, you can see how it's not sticking. It allows me to kind of mold. It allows me to mold the shape. Like you can see, look at this, I can kind of bend. I could bend the acrylic as well. That's huge, kind of adding texture to, say, a leaf around the edge. That's what you want to be able to do so that you have really good control. But practicing that is going to be immense when it actually comes to all of the three-dimensional work that you do. Let's go ahead and take our hand file. I'm going to file my sides, right? Get it as straight as I possibly can. I'm going to taper the front end of the nail. I'm going to make sure that my sides are dead straight. The front is still a little flexible because that's the last part of the nail that I actually applied. If I'm doing my lower arches, you want to be able to keep, you can see how much lower that tip is. Keep it parallel to the finger and file up so that your lower arches end up reaching your sidewalls dead straight. Same thing on this side. You're going to notice that if the tip hangs lower, you need to have your file at this point. And then as you file up and in, you're going to be able to bring your lower arch razor sharp straight all the way to the side. It's about trying to get your nails look like they're on a cover of a magazine. That's the key. Not only your clients look at them, they're just like, damn, that's sick. All right, I don't really need a lot of filing for my upper arch. I'm going to run my electric file around 11,000 RPMs. You're going to notice that I'm looking at the side profile. You can see I don't really have that much filing. I'm filing in one direction. filing in one direction. As I tune this up, you can see that like I needed a little bit here. The upper arch didn't really need anything. As I file through, I'm using the base. Starting from zone 1, working to zone 2, ending at zone 3. Zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. If I'm looking down the barrel of the nail, I'm looking zone 3, zone 2, zone 1, and you can see I'm not filing into my flower because it was super thin. All the way through, making sure that it's going to be even on both sides. I'm going to go around the perimeter of the nail. Boom. Man, I just watched The Queen's Gambit this weekend. Oh my God, what an incredible show. It's about chess. You guys will love it. I'm sure most of you have seen it. All right, so last but not least, what I want to be able to do is work around my edge to make sure that everything is nice and tight. I'm using this as a way to file everything even. And then what I want to be able to do at the final point is to be able to look down this profile. So this is more of a tapered square nail. All right. What I want to be able to do is use this profile, the client profile, to make sure that my sidewalls are going to be dead even on, everything is going to be even from both sides. Making sure that client profile, this is dead straight as well. All right, let's see what this looks like before we put the top coat over the surface. The level of clarity, which is it really is incredible. I'll show you by just, so what you want to be able to do so that you get a really intense level of clarity is by do this real fast. Oops. Oh no. Greg, what did you do? Sorry. I was too busy trying to paint the underneath. So, watch. Just gonna get a real small amount, and then I'll just kind of just run a very, very shallow amount underneath here, and then that way there's a little bit of dust. Oh God, Greg, you are a disaster. Yeah, there we go. So as I come through and I actually just kind of pull everything, you're going to be able to see the flower. All right, and that's what we want to be able to do. We want to be able to see that all the way through the top. Fun way of actually creating a really nice design, especially for the holidays. I want to be able to show off some of the 3D work that you can do. Fun, really is. The key is making sure that the product is not going to get away from you. That way you can mold it into perfection. And then building it, again, thin, not too thick, so that when you file it, you have room to file. If you guys have questions, hit me up. I'm always here to help. Thank you guys for tuning in. Have a wonderful day. Peace.